How's it going, everybody? EastPhilly here. Today I'm going to be taking off the stock Fender license plate tail light assembly area and replacing it with this one. I forget what the brand is. It was on Amazon for about 20 bucks. I'm going to be doing that. It's going to go from pretty much that to that. It's going to be using the stock turn signals. I'm going to be keeping the license plate. It has its own little LED license plate light with those wires. It's going to be my first time working with wiring, so that's going to be a little weird. So it should be good. Also wanted to say that I do have an Instagram now. You go on Instagram, it's East Philadelphia. Someone already took East Philly for some reason. So check me out on Instagram at East Philadelphia, and you'll see some ideas of what I'm going to be doing before I actually make videos of it. So one of the worst parts about this mod is you have to actually take off the rear seat, the driver's seat, this little thing. You have to take off the side fenders in order to get into all the bolts that you need. And there's these little plastic clips under here that you're going to have to take off as well. The plastic clips are actually what holds most of this into it, but there are a couple bolts up top that I'm going to have to remove. So that's going to be the big pain, and I don't want to scratch them up, so I'm going to be taking off the sides, putting them into this bin. And I lost my GoPro tripod mount, so it's gonna be weird to see how I'm going to be able to film this. Okay, so the first step after taking out the rear seat is taking out the front seat. To do that, you got to lift up the little flaps and take out the screws there. And I'm going to be putting everything in this little holder just so I keep track of everything, because there are some screws that are different than others that you have to really keep track of it. So I kind of just marked this whole section off, and I'm gonna be writing what each bolt is as I take it off and keeping track of it. Next, I'm going to have to take off the side fenders, and I'll be putting them into the bin to keep them from getting scratched. So one of the things you have to look out for is under here, there's a little push tab. You just gotta push it up, and then you can pull it out. Yeah, here we go. And then it'll look like that. When you want to put it back in, you push that through, you insert it, and then push the top up. Then after you get all that off, you're going to take that centerpiece off and then take out these 6 bolts. It's a lot of work to get this whole fairing set off, but it's actually pretty cool because the fairings aren't connected to, aren't part of the tank. So you can easily repaint the bike without having to take the whole tank off if you really wanted to, which I probably wouldn't do unless something happened and scratched it all up. Then I might wrap it or plasti dip it or something, but this would make it a lot easier compared to what I did with the CB300F. At this point, all the bolts are off for the fairings, so there's going to be little areas in here that are kind of pushed into a grommet, and you got to be careful that you don't break them. You can see right there's one of them, I think. This little black piece here, and there's going to be some up top. So you want to kind of push in on this area when you do it, and it'll pop right out. So now the fairings are off. It's cool, they had this little padding there for it. I'm gonna have to look at some of the videos, because these are all the lighting here that goes into the back here. I believe I know I have to take this part off, and I believe there's some other bolts around here I have to take off in order to get that off. I'm gonna look at a video real quick to make sure I'm doing it correctly, and then I'll get right back into it. Next up is just taking off this little section. These come off really quickly and easily, so be careful that you don't lose them. Again, they go right into the organizer bin. Next up, I had to take these poppers out of the bottom of the tail here. They're pretty easy, just kind of just gets it ready to remove the entire assembly. After that, it's just taking this off, and then we can actually get started on the Fender Eliminator kit. So far, all this has just been to get to the bolts and everything else to do the actual kit. So with the metal piece off, we're gonna have to be taking this back fender area off. We're gonna use an 8mm wrench or 8mm socket to get that off. Just loosen those for now. And then you're gonna have to use a hex key for here. There we go. You're gonna have to use a 732 hex key. I'm just gonna loosen these up so I can get them off by hand. So got everything loosened up so that I can get it off by hand. And just a little note, take a picture before you take everything apart so you remember where all the bolts are, and I'll just make it easier. Just because each one of these is a different bolt. This is, you have to use a wrench or a socket. This one you have to use a bigger Allen key. This one's a smaller Allen key. These are screws, just so you remember which spot goes where. I'm sure none of these are interchangeable, but it's just good to know where everything is. At this point, you pop the center piece off. You can pop these sides off through the little rubber grommets in there. Put them away carefully. Then you have your assembly. I don't think I actually needed to unscrew this part, but that's okay. Kind of just gives me better access to some of the wires, but everything we're going to be doing is pretty much involved with this. So next up, I'm going to be taking all the wires out. You gotta lift up this little tab in here, and then you pull it freely. It's kind of hard to do with one hand. So what I decided to do to keep track of everything is I took some tape and I wrote numbers on them. This is 3, so that connects to 3, 1 connects to 1. Simple as that. Next, I'm going to have to take off these bolts down here, to take off the bottom, get the cables out, and then I can actually start on the new Fender Eliminator. So I didn't film all of it because it was kind of intensive. I took the whole assembly out. I really didn't need to take that out, but I did. There was some zip ties you had to undo. There was a little wire holder here you had to pop out in order to separate the wires from the taillight and the turn signals. Turn signals, you have to undo the top bolts here to separate this section, and that lets you pull off this part and lets you bring the taillights out. So I'm going to be reusing these taillights on the new assembly and wiring them back up. I got to take my plate off, and I'm going to leave these off. I do like these on mine. I actually got blue ones that I'm going to put on there, and I'm going to work on that. Now we're finally getting into the nitty-gritty. I put this together already. It's not too hard. You just put these bolts on first. Make sure you tighten them down first, and then these. If you don't tighten those down first, it's hard to get in there because when you put this on, it blocks it. So make sure you put those on first, and then up here, it's all little screws. It's not that hard. You just look at the pictures on the website. It did not come with instructions. You had to kind of just figure it out. But that's going to go on underneath with the original screws that you took off of the original taillight. So I'm going to put the lights in. You can see there's this rubber piece here, and that's going to go into the hole. And then down here is a little piece that plugs into here to keep it all tight. It's really not hard at all. You just push it in, and then you put this tab in there and it holds it all together for you. You don't have to do any hard work on that. It's really easy. Yeah. So I put just 2 screws in for now. I was testing the lights. I plugged them in up here. See, turn on the right, turns the right on, left turns the left on. I don't have it spliced up for the light yet. I might wait on that and talk to 77 TikTok because he knows a bit more about wiring stuff. It's starting to look good. I'm going to tighten all the bolts down, put the tail light back on, and then we'll get going from there. So I got the brake light back on, tail light, brake light. I got everything in, got the wires routed through, and I'm just starting to hand tighten these before I really torque them down so I can get everything on evenly. And that should be it for the install. After that, I'm just gonna have to re-put all the fairings back on, which is really gonna suck. But as soon as I finish this up, I'll give you another view. So here it is. Tail tighten all set up and nice. Everything's bolted in, tightened down. I have the wires routed and going up here. I use that little clip there to keep them back together. I didn't zip tie them though because I'm gonna have to take this wire back out to splice it at some point to go into one of these. It's underneath, so I didn't have anything wrong with it, and everything seems pretty good. I'm going to start putting the motorcycle back together and trying to figure all that out. So I've got the side fairings on. I looked at my picture to make sure I knew where everything was supposed to go. It's the wrong one for that. Just remember there is these spacers under here that you have to put in before you put that on. So I figured I'd just remind you about that. So here's what I was saying with these. You push the tab down so it's poking out, and you push it up in there. You can get it through. I don't think I'm hitting the hole right. Or might not even be in the right spot. There we go. And pop it, and it stays in place. So I got everything in there, starting to put the fairings on. Again, there's a couple push grommets here, and there's a little tab here. Just make sure you just gently push it in. That holds it in place, and then you're going to put all the screws on. I am complete on the Fender Eliminator kit, so do a little walk around. Everything's back in place, no extra pieces. You can see how that looks. Much better than the huge tail. I'm gonna have to adjust those. There it goes. That looks good. From the side, I don't have the LED plate light hooked up yet. Walk around the front so you can see those highlighter areas. Again, they don't match very well. Probably find something that matches a bit better. I saw one on a 4. That's the end of this. I'll put a link to this Fender Eliminator kit in the description. I think it looks good. Kind of cleans up the whole area a bit. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. If you did dislike it, that's okay. Please let me know in the comments why, so I can make this channel better for both you and me. I'm EastPhilly. That's the end of this video, and I'll see you all next time.